So we are at this evolutionary moment of our future where we can look ahead and redefine our future by shedding all the misconceptions that have led us down this path. We've just done a new report, and I had to do this because such rapid changes are taking place in agriculture. I called it the future of our daily bread, regeneration or collapse. I'll talk more about the planetary implications tomorrow. But I want to tell you that having failed in the old genetic engineering, you got Bt crops that gave you super pests. You had Roundup resistant crops that gave you super weeds. So what is the solution they're finding to dealing with super weeds? No, but when the Roundup isn't working, so they can't spray more Roundup. No, they've gone 10 steps ahead. Bill Gates and DARPA, the Defense Research Agency, have joined hands to deploy what is called gene drives, which is genetic engineering to drive species to extinction. Now, one of our sacred crops in India is the amaranth. We eat it as greens. We eat the grain, it's called Ramdana. We eat it during fasting. It's the ceremonial food in all our festivals. The Palmer amaranth has become the most dominant weed in the Roundup Ready fields of America. So in this report of DARPA, and I have an article on this on the amaranth, they talk about, rats and they talk about mosquitoes, but there's one plant they address, which is the amaranth. And there's a footnote to the study that you should use gene drives to push the amaranth to extinction because it's now become a superweed. Well, there's an option. Stop spraying Roundup, stop putting the evolutionary pressure, and it'll become a plain old amaranth and not a superweed. And instead, they want to drive it to extinction. There's a footnote, an asterisk. And there will be food security implications for countries like India where they eat amaranth. Not only do we eat amaranth, the Mexicans. It's the ultimate sacred crop. And it was banned. When the Spanish conquered, it was made illegal because they saw in amaranth the connection to the sacred. And when a baby is born, a little tortilla of amaranth is put on the head so that the baby is communicating straight with the divine. And even though this was made illegal, this was a practice they never gave up. So gene drives, extermination by deliberate intent, I think it's a crime. And the second group of new GMO technologies is what they called Crispr. You might have heard of gene editing. And Bill Gates is big financing in this, and I always say, but Mr. Gates, life is not a word program of cut and paste. It is far more complex, far more self-organized, that cut here and paste there will have huge consequences. And I want to read out to you some of the consequences that the scientists working on CRISPR are telling us. So the spin is that this is an absolutely precise tool. Using molecular scissors to cut DNA means scientists can edit genomes more precisely and rapidly than ever before. Dudna, who's one of the people, has found out that, now let me give you this one. A study on CRISPR found that 1,500 single nucleotide mutations and more than 100 larger deletions and insertions had happened with one gene editing. One gene editing, 1,500 unpredictable changes in the genome. And in a recent study for sight restoration in blind mice, the unpredictable generation of these variations is a serious concern. They've been doing CRISPR babies in China. I don't know if you read about that, and now they found out there's an American scientist who was involved in this experiment with hubris. There are patents already on CRISPR gene editing. In Europe, it was ruled that this is a GMO, will be regulated as a GMO. In your country, they had a one line saying it is not a GMO and will not be regulated. So this is the next generation, and it's based on totally false claims. So the company that was rushing into healthy food, you're going to see a lot of natural appropriated by the industrial agriculture and food system. You're going to see a lot of use of all the things you've done as a community on healthy eating appropriated. And in one example is by this company called Calixt. And they were coming out to say they were going to give you the ultimate. They were going to make low trans fat soya bean. Now the trans fat is made when vegetable oil is hydrogenated. It's not in the plant. But they're going to do miraculous low trans fat soya bean. With fraud like that, that's how your shares go. Interestingly, all the shares are coming down right now. So we are being invited by the earth to go back to the real seeds that give us real food and real health. And we've done the work of seed saving in India. We built the movement for seed saving in India. But I believe everyone should be a seed saver. And you can be a seed saver in two ways. Either if you're a farmer, get involved in turning your farm into a farm of diversity. By growing diversity, you're saving seeds. But even if you're in a town, say, take one little pot and take your favorite plant and put the seed of that favorite plant and say, you I will protect. Your freedom is my freedom. Your life is my life. Choose your favorite plant. And we now do a lot of research. So there have been many generations. The farmers were breeders. Open pollinated crops, open source seeds bring so much more nutrition. We are just starting to scratch the surface. We're just starting to scratch the surface on the fact that a small size can often mean higher health. That size is the wrong measure for food. Nutrition is. In Sanskrit, we actually have a word for bad food. It's called abhaksha. And I say food has become anti-food because seed has become anti-seed. Seed is supposed to give life, and all your technology is directed at ending the life in the seed, then that seed is not going to give you the food that nourishes your life. We realize that because we are in periods of climate change, we need to co-create with the earth to allow evolution to be able to be a response for resilience. So we do evolutionary breeding and we do participatory breeding. And women peasants are doing this all over the country. They used to. The seed banks were always managed by women, and the grandmother used to go and put a little string on the particular grain head that would be the best seed. And then we were turned into consumers of seed, and we turned into consumers of food. And we're forgetting what seed is and what food is and what the relationship between the two is. So we do not just the actual breeding, we do the seed saving, we do the breeding. We are beginning networks of exchange, very high level, because the seed famine that started in this country is being brought to our country. And wherever there's a crisis, it's because of the seed famine. And just like we don't need to have food famines, we don't need to have seed famines. We also organize courses. I do a particular course. These are the postcards that fell. It's A to Z of biodiversity, agroecology, and organic food systems every year, 1st to 30th September, at the Navdanya farm, where the mornings are the cutting edge science. First on the living food systems, living seed, living soil, and living economies. And, you know, I've grown up, I'm born in India, grown up in India, and, you know, off and on you suddenly wake up to a turmeric, which also was biopirated, and that's a big case too. And suddenly you can go to Starbucks and have a turmeric latte. But we've grown up with this diversity of food, and food is diversity, just like the planet's health is diversity. Food is diversity. I'm going to develop much more of the connections between the diversity of the earth and the diversity in our food and how central it is to health. If you start to realize how much the earth has given us and how little we are using, we used to grow and eat 1,200 species of plants. Till industrial breeding, industrial food, and global trade reduced it to 10 globally traded commodities of nutritionally empty food, spreading disease, not health. We have to bring diversity back. And some of the diversity is not even cultivated. What Monsanto calls weeds and kills with Roundup is very often food. We do some festivals of just the uncultivated wilds. Just go around the farm and collected whatever we did not sow as a crop, but it's grown. The amaranth, the batwa, you call it lamb's ears, I think. My grandmother used to make the most amazing dishes of it. And in Punjab, they treat it as a weed and tried to wipe it out, except that it became a superweed. You know? Bringing diversity back and bringing life back to our farms is the way to bring health back onto our plates. I'm going to leave some of these cards outside. You can also visit the Navdanya.org website. And as I mentioned, you can visit the website of Seed Freedom, which is what shows that Monsanto and the poison cartel are so desperate that every once in a while they try and pass a law to conquer an entire country, to make local seed saving illegal. And therefore, the only seeds in the market will be their seeds, because they now control not just the GMO market, but the non-GMO seeds too. So they did this in Europe. The European parliamentarians wrote to me and said, there's a new law. We think it's seed, but it's not mentioning seed. I said, send it to me. I'll read it. It was about seed, except that they've started calling seed plant propagating material. Like it's raw material. I read it, I made corrections, sent it back. They made 1,200 amendments. But we did a journey, a seed pilgrimage, something I do very frequently in India, but we did this one through the parts of Europe which are biodiversity rich. Greece, Italy, France. By the end of it, this law could not be passed. Similarly, in Chile, in Colombia. In California, they were going to make it illegal to exchange seeds beyond a 3-mile boundary. And the regional parliament called me, and the local activists called me, what do we do, what do we do? I said, go to 3.1 mile and exchange the seed and do a seed satyagraha. The seed satyagraha is the way we have defended the freedom of the seed in India, It's the way we have spread the defense of the freedom of the seed all over the world. And when I talk about seed freedom, I'm talking about 3 freedoms. First is the freedom of the seed to continue to evolve on its own terms. Something like a Terminator technology is a total violation. Something like a Crispr is a violation of the seed to be able to organize its own mechanisms of how to evolve. The second freedom is the freedom of all the species that make the seed and are supported by the seed. So when you have toxic seed, you're not going to have butterflies and bees. So the freedom of the seed includes the freedom of the bees. It includes the freedom of the earthworm in the soil. And the third freedom, of course, is the freedom of human beings as growers of food to be able to save and exchange quality seed, whose quality is known by them through their history, as well as the freedom to eat real food from real seed. These are the freedoms under threat. The reason I'm very happy to have joined you for this conference on the real. I think real is better than fake. Fake news, fake food. Truth is better than falsehood, and health is better than disease and destruction. So let's work together. Thank you.